What is up? We're here with a new episode of Movie News, and we're going to start off with the Fantastic Beasts 3, looking to recast Johnny Depp as Grindelwald, and reportedly looking at Mads Mikkelsen. Now, Nick, what are your thoughts on this news?
First, the Mads Mikkelsen thing is a rumor, but I think he'd be an absolutely amazing choice to replace Johnny Depp. I think in general, he's just a really underrated actor. And I think, if you've seen like Casino Royale, for instance, like he can just be a great villain. So I personally would love for this rumor to be true, just because like he's so underrated. And I think he could easily pull off the role. In regards to Johnny Depp getting fired, I mean, I don't know. The whole situation with him and Amber Heard is like honestly such like a like I at this point I'm like so like exhausted every time I read something about it because it's just like been like nonstop back and forth. The courts did he technically did like lose the court case, so like I guess Warner Brothers, I don't know, just did their you know it's kind of weird because it kind of like resembles what happened with like James Gunn back with
Mhm.
like Guardians 3 or back right before he got the Suicide Squad. It's it's kind of an it is what it is situation just
Yeah,
because this isn't, at least with Gunn, the tweets were brought up all with like Depp, like it was like a legal like official government standing that like was knocked against him. So what this means for Johnny Depp in the future, I have no idea. I guess we'll just see. I mean, it just isn't, it is what it is type situation. So who know? I'm just kind of like, we'll see what happens.
yeah. I think for me, the thing is, it's so complicated because you read all this stuff about it, and it just seems like very much unclear what exactly happened, at least to me, right? I'm not in those courtrooms listening to what's happening. But from what I've read, Warner Brothers wanted to fire him. They did an internal investigation themselves, and they wanted to fire him beforehand, and they were just looking for a reason legally, I think, to get out of his contract.
Right,
So while he resigned, he was really fired.
right.
Um,
I mean, it was already like controversial to have him on the film, like back when he was first accused of abuse back in 2016. It was like a big thing when like the director and J.K. Rowling like defended him, and then
mhm.
now like going to this third film, he's getting fired. It's kind of like, well, you know, it's how the events just lined up, you know.
Right. And from everything I've read about the court case in, I believe it was in London or England somewhere, uh, did not look good for Johnny Depp. It really
Yeah,
was. I don't know. I don't want to say if someone did or did not when I'm not there. I don't know exactly what happened, but
yeah, it's such a hard
it
situation.
looked bad.
Yeah, it's hard as such a hard situation to like properly be like you're at fault here. It's
Right.
just so much like going on.
Right. And the thing I would say to people is that while it seems to be pretty bad, you never want to jump to conclusions. Um,
Right.
we have courts for a reason.
Mhm.
But moving on to something more exciting, depending on who you are, Chaos Walking drops its first poster. And I wanted to talk about this so much because if you guys know anything about this movie, it's starring Daisy Ridley and Tom Holland. And it has, oh gosh, who else does it have? We were just talking
Mads
about him.
Mikkelsen.
Mads
Mads
Mikkelsen.
Mikkelsen.
I was like,
Yeah.
I was blanking on him. I was like, I knew there was some connectivity here.
Mhm.
Um, and this was filmed like in like 2016, and it was reportedly like straight garbage, like a dumpster
Mhm.
fire. The studio thought it might be unreleasable. It was that bad. And then they started doing reshoots. It was a mess because Daisy Ridley's doing Star Wars and Tom Holland's doing Spider-Man. Like, when are you going to do reshoots? So apparently they're releasing the film now, which it might be a terrible movie. I'm really curious. I just want to see because I've read so much about this over the past like 4 years. And it was like it's like that throwback where you haven't seen someone in a while, and then you finally see them, and you're like, oh my god, that's a person I went to like high school with,
Mhm.
right? Um, I'm just so curious. But what were your thoughts when you heard about this?
This is like once I like was like reading up on it as well and like finding out how long I was like, this is a New Mutant situation. This is like a straight up new, like just the whole like prolonged reshoots. The fact like the first cut was like like was not, they didn't trust the first cut. Is like, this is a New Mutant situation, and I mean, could it have worked? I mean, maybe. I mean, like, will this release cut work? I mean, but like also when you have that kind of like prolonged like reshoots, like maybe like a few months later is one thing, but have reshoots take place over like 4 years, that's got to like do something to like morale, do something to like the nature of the story and the filmmaking. It's just I don't know. Tom Holland, Daisy Ridley are great actors, so I, unless somehow the writing is like truly and utterly garbage, then I don't foresee them like coming off as bad performances. And I know like my friend is very excited to see it just because he's a huge fan of Ridley. And I don't like, I was paying attention to it because of Ridley. Like, this is her first big Star Wars film, or non-Star Wars film, other than like Murder on the Orient Express. So kind of hoping it's like good for her. But I mean, when you have a production that's as chaos driven as this one, then you, who knows what will happen. Like, I'm one of the few who saw New Mutants, and New Mutants was not, was not particularly good movie. And it just, you could see all the stuff that they like tried to do and didn't do, and like it's all the stuff when you try and like change up a project after so many years.
Yeah, it's a mess. And the
Mhm.
budget of this movie is reportedly $100 million. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
including like all the reshoots they did or not, but that's a lot
and
for
it's,
something they said at one point was unreleasable.
yeah, and like it's such like, it's a relatively reliable behind the scenes crew, like Doug Liman from Edge of Tomorrow and Born Identity, Holland and Ridley, and then Mikkelsen, of course. It's just like, how'd you all end up here?
Right, right.
Damn, it
Anyway,
happens.
yeah, we're gonna move on. David Fincher signs an exclusive 4-year deal with Netflix, and he is said to be starting off with some sort of mini series on cancel culture. Nick, what were your thoughts when you first heard this news?
An exclusive 4 year deal with Netflix is very interesting because I don't know if that means that is just solely his upcoming miniseries or TV series or whatnot, or if that means he's going to be making further movies for him. I mean, Mank is going to be his first big movie since, what was it, Gone Girl with Ben Affleck in like 2014 or something,
Has it really been
right?
that long? Oh, because he did
I think,
Mindhunter.
yeah, he was like executive producing that.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. So if this means like Fincher content is going to be up outside of this new TV series, then I mean, I'm excited. He's another underrated person in the film industry, so we'll see what happens there. As for his miniseries, this could be this could be a very big series in both of like of impact and of like, I think like also like infamy, just because cancel culture has become such a, I don't even know how to describe, like cancel culture has become such a big topic and discussion these past few years. It's like, all the way back like from the like it birthed in when the Me Too movement started, and like now I feel like it's such like a hot button topic. So for him to even try and like take on such a topic, hats off to him. I trust that he has something in store. I think it's going to be an interesting story, and I'm intrigued to see how he'll do tackling such a still very like recent and strong um, point of interest. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I think he has the talent to do it because his films are a lot about the human psyche.
Mhm.
Um, think about Zodiac, or it's the Social Network's all about like
Yeah.
how people think, right?
Mhm. A lot of
Facebook,
like
it's
obsessive
social media.
characters.
Yeah, exactly. Obsessive, like Zuckerberg, played by Jesse Eisenberg, he's not nuts, but he is obsessive. I think that's a good way
Mhm.
of putting it. And I think he deals with these like individual characters really well. So I think he could do a mini series about this. This is really relevant. I'll be curious if
Right.
cancel culture cancels the show about cancel culture. Um,
Yeah, that I could foresee that as a possibility. That'll be a hell of a time.
that would be hilarious. That would actually be great just for the memes. But I think it's really interesting. I see cancel culture, like there's a difference between like the Me Too movement and like cancel culture.
Mhm.
Um, so we'll have to see how it plays out. But I think there's a really interesting story there. As for Netflix, props to them for getting a 4-year exclusive deal with David Fincher.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Like
I
sign
think
me
that
up right away.
I think that's hilarious that they pulled the plug on Mindhunter, but then they were like, here's the other part of the exchange. We're gonna give you like we're gonna work out a 4-year deal with you, even though we just
Yeah.
killed your show.
I'm really interested that they did that before Mank came out.
Mhm.
Um, I would have thought they would wait for Mank to come out, see how well it did on their service, and see if having someone like Fincher do a Netflix movie works.
Yeah. So I don't know, strange, another strange series of events. Just how from Mindhunter to Mank to this, it's weird, really weird road.
Very weird. But we're going to move on to A Quiet Place 3. Now, yes, The Quiet Place 2 has not come out yet. You are correct. It was supposed to come out last March. I had my tickets booked. Then Corona happened. And talk about a bummer. Talk
Right.
about a bummer. Because I wanted to see that film so bad.
First
But
one's so good. First one's
oh my god, it's a all time. I thought it was the best film of that year, and the second one it had already gotten its reviews. It was supposed to be fantastic, and then they just were like, nope, we're moving it to next April or May, I think.
something like that. Yeah.
But there's a third one coming out or being put into production now. John Krasinski, I believe, had the new idea that sparked it, but
Mhm.
I don't believe he's writing and directing it. It's a new guy. I think his name's Jack Nichols.
Okay.
Don't take me for that off the top of my head. But it's supposedly a spin-off. All this news, Jeff Nichols, not Jack Nichols, Jeff Nichols.
Okay.
It's supposedly a spin-off. That's kind of all we know. He's set to write and direct it. And you may be like, who is Jeff Nichols? Great question. I did not know who he was, and I'm in like this is the world we kind of live in. If you've seen
Right.
Mud, he did Mud.
Right.
That's a really good film I've heard. I haven't seen a lot of his films, which is interesting. Mud's been on my list for a while. I think it might be on Netflix actually.
That's the one with Matthew McConaughey, right?
Exactly, that's correct. All right, all right, all right. And
Yeah.
he's pretty well regarded as a pretty good
Yeah.
filmmaker. But what were your thoughts when you heard that there is a new A Quiet Place movie being made and that it may be a spin-off?
Going on the angle, it's a spin-off. I feel like that's gonna be a tightrope to walk, just because like I feel like A Quiet Place wasn't like Star Wars where there are like boundless opportunities for like world building, but at the same time, like A Quiet Place was such a the first one at least was such a focused, like intimate story. Like there is at the same time so many opportunities to like tell like here's how like this group of people is handling this. Here's how like the government. It could even be like a prequel when like everything went to hell. Like there is still like opportunities to tell that story. You just have to be careful of not like veering too far from what the first movie and what the second movie looks like. As long as they don't end up making this some sort of like crazy like action film. I mean, they can, but like it would just feel like a strange jump. I think.
Right.
Um, like I know like Sam Raimi's Evil Dead franchise kind of pulled it off, switching from like horror to like horror comedy. But like even then, you just gotta hit that balance well if you want to like make an abrupt like change. So I'm excited. I think it's a type of franchise that you gotta like be careful with, because so you don't have like repeated like returns, like kind of like the Jurassic Park franchise. But I think if he can hit that like that area where it's like building the world out and still feels unique, I think that would be great. Like some sort of like I'm just thinking like if it's some sort of like 24-hour like chase type thing where they're getting
Mhm.
like hunted and they have to keep moving on. I think something like that would be so cool and so epic. As long as they don't transform into like a Walking Dead or something where it's like prolonged like conflict or something.
Right.
I think
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
that would be like it's fine for The Walking Dead to do that because
Mhm.
that's what the show is. But like I feel like A Quiet Place is about like the few survivors everywhere who are just trying to make it. Like that's what I find interesting. Like how do these different people survive? Like how does someone in the middle of nowhere survive? How does someone in like a suburban neighborhood survive? How does someone in a city survive? Like what happened? How did this happen? Like there's so many questions. I know A Quiet Place 2, if you've seen any of the trailers for it, it sounds like they're addressing some of the like what was day one like as far
Yeah.
as for that family. But I want to know so much about the world that this takes place in.
Mhm.
And if I can see that, I will be very, very happy. But I don't want it to be, like you said, The Walking Dead. I don't want it to be like, oh, we're going to take back our planet. Like, no, I don't need that. I don't need that
Mhm.
storyline. I need, like, this is what happened. These are the survivors, and these are the survivors' stories.
Yeah.
Because I like, if I were to see this built out into like a massive franchise, I'd want to see it as like a collection of short stories in a way, where each movie
Mhm.
is its own like short story about what happened to the specific group.
Right. Like if they take an approach, like, have you seen Cloverfield?
I saw the first Cloverfield, yeah.
Okay, because like that franchise too, it's like the first three, like the three films in the franchise have like are not necessarily connected. Like you can read up, like there are connections, but like for the most part, they're like isolated adventures that are like different, and like very uniquely different. So I feel like if they can kind of like channel that energy, sort of, then you can keep it feeling fresh and alive. If that's their intent to like keep this thing going.
Yeah, I love the first Cloverfield movie. Just as a side note, love that
Yeah,
movie.
good time.
Moving on, the original director of Home Alone, Christopher Columbus, yes, Chris Columbus is his name, is reportedly not happy with the Disney Plus reboot. Now, Nick, when you heard about this reboot, what were your thoughts about them rebooting the classic, the one, the only Home Alone?
Same as Chris Columbus. I was just kind of like, what? I was like, why? I was in because I saw the first two with Macaulay Culkin. Hopefully, I don't know why.
Fully Culkin.
Yeah, there you go. Like I saw the first two and the OG, and then when he was in New York, and then I even saw like the third one, and I know they made a fourth. Like once that the original kid, like once Culkin left, it just wasn't the same, and it was like this is another franchise that like you have to do it in a certain way so it's not the gimmick of like one kid booby trapping his house does not become repetitive, and it did become repetitive. So for Disney Plus to be like, I want to tackle this, it's kind of like, okay, I guess, sure. Like um I don't know, like we're still in the whole like let's reboot a franchise that's been long dead trend for a while now. Sometimes it's worked, like with Blade Runner 2049 and Creed, and then other times like it's kind of like, why did we bring it back? You're just rehashing old stuff. I'm kind of, I don't like to assume like too far ahead. But I am in this case just because there were two like attempts to like already continue the franchise and it didn't work. I'm kind of like, this probably might not work out. Could it? Again, you never know in this industry, but like straight, like of all the things you could have done, Disney Plus, a Home Alone reboot was not what I was expecting.
Yeah, it's just, I understand that the name of the franchise is worth a lot, but also those movies still hold up really well. And for me,
Mhm.
when I want a reboot, I want it because that means the previous movies no longer hold up. Like A Star Is Born. Like
Mhm.
the first one or the second one may not hold up with modern like people who live in 2020,
Mhm.
or when the new one came out in what, 2018. 20,
2018, yeah.
um but Home Alone I watch every year and I'm like, this movie still holds up.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's so good. It's a classic.
Yeah, and so from that perspective, right? You only want something because you need it like reincarnated. You need a new version of it that modernizes the story.
Mhm.
The story still feels very modern.
Mhm.
So I don't know what they're going to do. They better have a really good idea if they can justify doing this.
Because
Um,
like you got to think about it, it's not a Home Alone film unless the kid booby traps his house at the end, and the whole third act is just the bad guys running into it. But also like, there's only so many things you can do to switch up the classic like he'll like attached electric wires to the doorknob, or he like left like he like sabotaged the pipes or whatnot. There's only so much like the houses of 2020 are still the houses like they were in like 85 or whenever those films came out. Like there's only so much you can do to like switch up the tactics.
right. And also, let's just quickly note that those guys would have been dead like 8 times. Like
Yeah.
that kid is a killer, killer. Um, but we're gonna move on to our final subject, which is the film Nobody. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, Directed by, oh, what's
I
her
believe
name?
I believe it's Ilya Naishuller. That's how I
Yeah,
can.
let's go with
Yeah.
that. Ilya Naishuur, starring Bob Odenkirk, Connie Nielsen, and Christopher Lloyd, had its first photos. So Nick, what would you like to say about this film?
First, I took note of it because Christopher Lloyd, for those who don't know, he was Doc Brown in the Back to the Future franchises. It's one of my favorite franchises. He's one of my favorite characters. And so when I saw his name, I was like, oh my God, like I haven't seen Christopher Lloyd in like forever since Back to the Future. So the chance to see him is really exciting. And also Bob Odenkirk, I'm a huge, who you see behind me, I'm a huge Breaking Bad fan, huge Better Call Saul fan. So to see him kind of break out into this, what looks to be like a really new role opposite his Bad and Saul roles, then I'm here for it. And Connie Nielsen from Wonder Woman is always really reliable. So it's a pretty solid trio. I think, excuse me, I think the director also, from what I read, directed that film Hardcore Henry, that like first person action film. I don't know
I like the
if you
name.
recall it. Okay. Yeah, but like the whole thing is nobody is supposed to be like an action film, and they have the director has an action background, and then the three actors, like that's a pretty interesting trio there. So I'm excited for this. It's scheduled to come out in 2021, I believe, in like February or something. So hopefully a trailer drops soon.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read too much about the film, but I do really like the first images, which says
Mhm.
nothing about how the quality of the film is, because why would they show bad first images? Like, there has to
Right,
be a few good ones, at least, in any movie.
right,
You can't get that far. Like, you're on Chaos Walking land, New Mutants land,
yeah,
almost unreleasable.
right,
Um,
right.
but I'm interested. I'm down with Bob Odenkirk being a protagonist for a film. Uh, I'd read that it might be like John Wick-ish,
Hmm.
which I'm always interested in. Because John Wick is maybe my a video for another time best action
Yeah,
franchise.
yeah. And, I can
But
see where you're going. Another, yeah,
John
video for
John
another
Wick
time.
John Wick, I can make an argument for that. But
Mhm.
hearing that comparison got me excited. I'll be like, I'll get a real kind of idea of how I feel about this once the first trailer comes out. But
Right.
otherwise, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts.
Gotcha.
But with that, that wraps up this episode of Movie News. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you want to say anything about what we talked about. Ask a question to us, and we'll see you next time.
Peace out.